And we are live. Hi,
Okay, great.
Shahana.
Okay,
Hi.
awesome. Hi.
How are you?
So I'm good. It's like we're starting now, but I'd like to be clear so everybody knows in full in full disclaimer disclosure. Yeah, we've been talking for almost 40 minutes now about just
That's
trying to
true.
get this together. So we're quite familiar at this point with each other.
Yeah. And this is the first time we're talking. So it was not at all awkward. like,
It was one of those situations where it's like, hey man, so I'm starting this thing. Oh shit, not starting this thing. Okay, let's make awkward conversation for 40 minutes. It's fine.
yeah.
Like that's like my favorite.
Full disclosure, पाकिस्तान के अंदर जब भी मैंने लोगों को बुलाया है ना, invite किया, so they're always late. So like I always have 30 minutes in my head. I'm like, okay, desi jeans सब में है, so because when I sent you the invite, you were there. You were like,
Yeah.
oh, okay, she's here. Like I don't have those 5 minutes. I'm like, oh, okay, that's the hate.
I've
No.
gotten very used to I think even in Pakistan when I lived there, I think I was always good about being punctual. लेकिन यहाँ पे रह के तो लाजमी है. It's like I've gotten
Yeah.
super used to being good about being on time. I've lived in अभी April में I will have officially lived, or I mean I will have officially lived in America like as a final resident for 5 years now. So like I'm very used to how it works here. In fact, yeah, a lot of times I'll be doing things with people from back home and I'll be on time and I'll just be waiting. Okay, like Pakistan, miss
Oh.
somebody's just taking 3 hours to get there, and I'm like, bruh.
ये तो लोग है ना. Like I'll tell you, like actual universities can, like I knew this one person who was invited to give a lecture in some university in Islamabad, an engineering college. मतलब नाम नहीं लूंगा, but anyways, that they made that person wait. Guest lecture. That person is giving a guest lecture. I think on like some startup culture or something. That university made that person wait for I think 20-25 minutes. ऑन किस आपको भेज रहे हैं, हम आपको जूम लिंक भेज रहे हैं, आप बैठे. And the
That's
funny thing is
crazy.
that
I
that
feel
person, she was telling me and I wasn't even surprised. I wasn't even like, I was like, Lahore, like हो जाता है Pakistan.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know why we're like that. Honestly, I don't know why we're like that. Like honestly, I presumed jab se COVID hua hai and the world has gone into like this Zoom world, I presumed that people would, even in Pakistan or in Desi cultures, I presumed that people would be more mindful of being on time for Zoom, because Zoom pe yahi hota hai ki you have like a time ki bas, and it's like it's not the same thing as making somebody wait in person. Even though the waiting in person sounds worse, you know what I
Yeah.
mean? For some odd reason, making somebody wait in person just doesn't, it's something we're so used to doing. So I just presumed that people about Zoom would be like, oh, actually, your time, I need to be there because the person's sitting at a computer waiting for me, But I guess, I don't know. I don't know why again, I have no clue. Yahan par to, like, I mean, it's very different. Like everybody has shit to do, right? Like everybody's very
Oh yeah.
particular about like, do not waste my time,
Yeah, like I think, like at least I know in Lahore though, like there's no concept of like a weekday. Like it doesn't matter if it's a Monday or a Tuesday. You're like, रात को कोई दोस्त आ गया, they don't even care. They're like, sure
Yeah.
man, हम भी तो
Yeah.
काम पे जा रहे हैं. And you're like,
But I miss that though. I really miss that about Pakistan. Like that whole, I don't know.
yeah.
Like I think like living over here can be really isolating in that way. I often say that if you're an ambitious person, who's very work driven and wants to get ahead, yeah, move to like, North America or these countries that are very like workforce oriented, but हम पाकिस्तान में रह के हम बहुत आदी हो गए कि like no one cares कि अच्छा if you finished work, काम के बाद चलो चाय के लिए मिलते हैं, coffee के लिए मिलते हैं,
Yeah.
like it's so normal, right? यहाँ पे you have to plan, it's like when I first moved to America, I got really, I was like, okay, I'm going to reach out to people that I know here and try to make plans with them. And sure, they were like, Acha, we're gonna meet you on January 23rd at blah blah time. And I was like, ye kya bakwas? Like,
I
why are you
I
like,
know. And शुरू में मुझे
why are
तब
you
भी
trying
बड़ी
to
चढ़ी थी जब शुरू में होता है आपको यार मतलब what do they mean like
yeah, exactly. But then after living here, and when
yeah,
people would come, I'd literally be like, okay, I'm gonna meet you at blah 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 time. Because यहाँ के schedules are just so different. Distances की वजह से meeting somebody is a hassle. You know, America is like sprawling so if I have to get somewhere, then I have to plan, for example, I live in Philly and New York City is 2 hours away from me. So that's a nothing thing in America. Like if something is a 2 hour drive for you, that's nothing, right? Compared to other places, right? So whenever anybody comes,
true.
obviously everybody comes to New York, everybody comes to Manhattan, right?
That is also true.
So mujhe har waqt I'll be told ki acha, can you we're coming on this day, blah blah blah. I've gotten angry at friends of mine ki khuda ka wasta, don't tell me the day you get there, tell me like a few days, because I was like, it's 2 hours for me, I have to like
आगे लाहौर
and then ऊपर से वो again, like you said, they get upset, they're like क्यों नहीं
क्यों नहीं मिले ही नहीं अबे नाराज हो जाते हैं रहते हैं नाराज yeah. So, yeah, that's a desi thing as well नाराज हो जाना we do get like नाराज of I very early I have felt हम नाराज बहुत जल्दी हो जाते हैं
Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah, a friend of mine is currently mildly, I guess, I don't know if mildly or not, he's currently upset with me because of the fact कि वो यहाँ पे आया था और वो, he went to Florida और वहाँ पे खूब मतलब, he just partied a lot and he basically wanted to meet me उसके बाद. And COVID की वजह से we were kind of like, sorry bro, अब तो मतलब, it's a real concern. And he had just gotten COVID in Pakistan, so he'd gone through it. So he was like, "नहीं मुझे हुआ है, तो मैं कुछ नहीं होगा." And we were like, "Bro, we live in America. The stats in freaking Florida are insane,
Florida
and
तो पागल हो
yeah, he got so upset with us, but वापस Pakistan चला गया. He kept telling all my friends. I was like, "Shit, I'm really sorry, but like, it's fucking COVID, dude."
That is funny. There was somebody who got
But
upset with me.
I think he's fine now though. I think he's fine now because like my birthday, I was like, my birthday is gonna be the biggest test because if he wishes me, I'll know we're okay. So he wished me. I was like, "Achha chalo khair." So yeah.
सही हो गया. Yeah, so I had this friend, like she's still my friend. But हमारी ये पॉलिसी होती थी मुझे याद है स्कूल के अंदर ये बर्थडे वाली कि अगर कोई भी नाराजगी हो गई है ना कोई मसला भी हो गया है वो भी हो गया है so we had this policy कि हमारी बर्थडे आएगी ना बर्थडे पे we can't stay upset there's just one play we can't stay upset and the problem was कि हमारी ट्रेडिशन थी कि हम एक दूसरे के लिए ना सरप्राइज करते थे and it's kind of like अब तो पता चल गया होता था तो I remember there was a time and we both were very upset कोई कुछ चीज हुई थी कोई मसला हुआ था और I think मेरी सरप्राइज आना था but like she had no option she had to do the surprise like she had and then we had to be like we laughed about it we're like मैंने कहा मुझे पता था मेरी बर्थडे आ रही है so I was like it's okay
it's true at least it's in situations like that like okay we're good friends we made it through this stupid.
But when did you move by the way when did you move to US?
So I've kind of been in and out of the US a lot of my life like मैं 1 साल की थी मतलब मैं पेशावर में पैदा हुई थी उसके बाद मैं 1 साल की थी मैं अमेरिका शिफ्ट हो गई थी और I was in America till I was around 8 I moved to Pakistan uske baad and I turned 9 in Pakistan. I went back to Peshawar and then I was in Pakistan pretty much my whole life. It was in 2012 that I left the country for the first time to study. I went to South Africa. I studied film.
You were in Peshawar?
No, I grew up in Islamabad. So my Peshawar, when I came back to Pakistan from the US at 9, I was in Peshawar.
I've lived in Peshawar.
Oh, cool. Yeah, my family's from Peshawar, we're Pathan, so my dad was from there, my mom is from Mardan. So so I moved there for 2 years, फिर उसके बाद हम Islamabad shift हो गए थे. So like Islamabad is my hometown, that's where I grew up. And I was in Islamabad, like जब भी मतलब I grew up there, so like every time I go back to Pakistan, I'll go back to Islamabad. and then I'll kind of visit other places or whatever. So it was in 2012 that I went to study filmmaking in South Africa. फिर उसके बाद मैं वापस आई. I went to Karachi. I worked for Coke Studio season 6. This was in 2013. Yeah, and then I went to New York after that to study acting in 2014. फिर उसके बाद मैं वापस कराची चली गई for a year. So yeah, basically, I guess like after getting my artist visa in 2016, I officially moved to the US, like finally. So like, yeah, like I said, in April, it's going to be 5 years. So again, like America, then Peshawar, then Islamabad, then South Africa, then Karachi, then back to America. That's been the move.
Man, I've had like, मैं काफी छोटा था जब मैं कराची वो पेशावर में था. My dad was posted there, but I have really good memories of Peshawar. We used to be in this ये cantonment होता था, and I remember वहाँ लकी रानी सर्कस भी आता था. That much I remember. I also remember वहाँ एक स्टेडियम भी था. But पेशावर बड़ी मजे की जगह थी. Like, yeah, interesting.
Yeah,
I also lived in.
Yeah, I haven't been back to Peshawar in a few years now. I mean, obviously, hum jate the when we were much younger, but yeah, I just haven't been back. My father passed away in 2012, so I remember we went to bury him, and then since then, I haven't been back.
Oh, I'm sorry to hear that.
It's cool.
You moved to New York in 2016. How was were you like when you were making moves, like, yeah, tell me about that. Like what was the final thing that convinced you, and मैं जा रही हूँ, I'm going to pursue acting, I'm going to pursue being an artist professionally full time?
Well, honestly, I always knew. I was like, I'm a bit of the cliche. Like bachpan se I was like, I want to go do this, It was just growing up in Pakistan, it was always a matter of like, I guess like opportunity and money, like I didn't come from like my family wasn't rolling in it, so it was like how am I gonna afford to go, like I honestly just started working when I was 16. Like I did my O levels, and then I started acting at 16, and I started just taking on random jobs. So it was a matter of like, I'm gonna get there one day, I just don't know how at that stage, मुझे हमेशा से I wanted to study particularly at the school that I ended up studying at, like I'd always bachpan se I wanted to go there. I just, again, it was a matter of like, how will I get there? It was after many, many years of like working in Pakistan and saving, that I eventually saved up and was able to go to school. So that's what I did. I didn't end up going to college. Like A levels मैंने privately की. I didn't end up going to college. I remember it was really funny because I remember I was doing a job at the time. I was 18 साल की थी, and the job was like, we're going to hire you, but we need you just for our sake to like, just for paper's sake, कि you should have a bachelor degree. So मैंने bachelor degree अपनी की Punjab से, but like totally privately, which is literally like, I just showed up for the exams and I took them. So like I keep, when I tell people here, because obviously to have a university degree here is a big deal. They expect you have 4 saal guzar ke you've gotten your degree. And I always tell them that like, yeah, I never stepped a day, like a foot. Like
I was like, bro, I took a hoop. I took a hoop.
Yeah, exactly. It's like I never stepped into the University of Punjab ever. And I just took the exams in Islamabad. And I think even for that, like what I remember the most about that is that I went to take the exams and like, मैं ऊपर देख रही थी because some of the rooms did not have clocks in them, right? So I was like, how am I supposed to time my answers to make sure that I freaking get through this, कि ये क्या बकवास है, And I remember I was writing, and like this invigilator, like she literally walks to me and she says, "Beta, aapka dupatta nahi hai." I was like, of all the things, ये आपका दुपट्टा कहाँ है? आप दुपट्टा नहीं But yeah, so technically, I guess what I'm trying to say is technically I do have a degree.
Yeah.
But I don't take it seriously at all. When I did end up wanting, I'm very grateful actually that when the time happened and the time was right, when I was actually able to afford to go study, I ended up studying things that I actually love. Like I went to South Africa to study filmmaking, and I went to New York to study acting. And those were things that like I actually cared about.
But dude,
And
that's so
so
like that's so cool that you saved your own money and went. Like that's really cool. And tell you why. Like I know matlab, yeah, people that's how people supposed are people are supposed to do it, but people don't do it from Pakistan like that. So I always it's so refreshing to see ke yaar, acha, you earn your own money and then you're living your dream. That's like, yeah, man. Like
I mean,
kudos.
it's not to say that I didn't get help. Like I took loans from friends and I
Sure.
saved and I did
Yeah.
everything.
But
But
you
like
did
I
it on
put it
your
all
own.
together.
Yeah, it's not like
Yeah,
yeah, that
I just didn't yeah, because like I just was always the kind of person that was like I wanted I was a very like avid learner. I wanted to learn things. I always wanted to learn things. And like the cliche was that like I couldn't actually go to school for the things like it's like I was very like I was very Hermione in class. I was like, yes, I want to learn everything, um, but like I couldn't because I couldn't afford to. But I'm thankful because when I eventually did, I studied things that I actually cared about, and it worked out that way.
And I would also say, matlab, again, people might disagree with me. I also feel Pakistan में जो private school O and A levels करवा रही होती हैं, ये most of it is waste of money. Can easily be that honestly most of that knowledge अगर O plus I don't agree कि O level का time 3 साल होना चाहिए और A level should be 2 years. That's ridiculous because like
I
most of
think
these
it's
kids are going to
changed
tuitions.
though.
No,
I
it
think it's
still
changed.
depends on you, no?
Yeah, it really depends on you. Like, I think some institutions do their O levels in 2 years, and some do their A levels in 1 year. I don't know. I'm not sure what it is today, but I know that like there are options for you in terms of that.
Yeah. As for Punjab College, I think it wasn't a bad decision not to go and walk in Punjab College. Like, I think that was a smart decision. Definitely. Um,
Oh, I probably would have 5 teachers coming up to me कि बेटा आपका
by
दुपट्टा का-"
5 teachers, Jamiyat, बहुत सारे एक कोई क्रीपी सा लड़का भी आ रहा होता कैमरे के साथ ये देखें जी ये दुपट्टे के बगैर आई हैं पेपर देने But I'm not surprised. ये ना सिर्फ पंजाब कॉलेज में नहीं. I went with my friends to Murray, and I remember मेरे एक दोस्त ने निक्कर पहनी हुई थी. गर्मी है मतलब लाहौर की गर्मी में. That's why you come all the way to Murray तो like पागलपन है. We were fucking getting roasted in Lahore. So this kid is wearing a knicker and we having कढ़ाई. कोई वहाँ की कोई कढ़ाई थी हम खा रहे हैं. I kid you not. This one person comes in एंड वो वहां का वेटर था और उसने आके उसको किया है कि ये तुमने क्या पहना हुआ है ये फैमिली रेस्टोरेंट है एंड वी लाइक और शौक आपको नहीं मिलता है बट वो भी एंड वी लाइक व्हाट डू यू मीन लाइक इस लड़के ने निकर पहनी हुई है सो या उसने उस लड़के इट बिकेम अ थिंग वी हैड टू बी लाइक सर इजी क्या हो गया मतलब ये वहां साइड पे बैठा है नहीं नजर आ रही इसकी टांगें किसी को बच जाएंगे लोग इसकी टांगों से आप ना टेंशन ले बट yeah, like yeah, that's Pakistan, mate. Can't do a lot about that. But हो रही है. I don't know. Like, what do you think? Do you think like and that's where I'm heading towards the digital space. कभी कभार मुझे पर्सनली बड़े लोग ना लोग पूछते हैं यार प्रोपेगेंडा वगैरह में कभी कभार जब लोग गुस्से में आ जाते हैं कमेंट्स वगैरह के ऊपर ट्रोल्स वगैरह पे आई डोंट नो हाउ मेनी ट्रोल्स डू यू गेट हमें तो क्योंकि बहुत गालियां पड़ती हैं यार लाइक नॉट लाई हमें हमारी तीसरी चौथी पोस्ट पे कोई ना कोई कंट्रोवर्शियल चीज हो जाती है और बस लोग पागल हो जाते हैं बॉयज पागल हो जाते हैं
Yeah.
but we don't mind it we like हम तो हंसते हैं like I personally take it like lightly as a joke but it does worry me where we are going as individuals
I
you know
agree. I think that like हम हमेशा कहते थे कि future generations जो हमारी जो नौजवान है ये जब बड़े होंगे they'll have the right idea and we're now seeing that like I think one of the most something that just dawned on me recently was, this whole notion that our parents' generation used to say कि बस हमने तो कर लिया सब कुछ, हम कुछ नहीं कर सकते, it's on you now, it's on the future generation will be better, right? They're the ones who will change and make things better, right? Hamisha, this responsibility is thrust upon a future generation to be better and change things and make the system better. And it dawned on me, especially after looking at what our future our young generation, our present generation, forget the generation ahead of us, our generation, right? Like I'm 33. And at my age, I'm seeing that a lot of us are perpetuating the same shit that happened in previous generations, right? We're still perpetuating the same shit. It's just a lot more aggressive online, right? And it dawned on me that this whole notion of placing the responsibility on another generation to fix things is bullshit if you're the one who is still living out terrible ideologies or problematic ideologies, because हमारे बच्चे जो हैं, the future generation, वो हम ही से सीख रहे हैं, you know what I mean? They're learning all this shit from us, right? So if we're not trying to be examples of progressiveness or change, we can't expect our younger generation to be the opposite of that. Now, इसका ये मतलब नहीं है कि obviously generations do change, but the question is like when you and I, for example, come across people today that are saying really problematic shit, and we're like, how are you up to young? You know what I mean? Like, why do you have these terribly regressive values and thoughts? And it's because of the fact that they still come from a regressive household, perhaps, or I often say that a lot of us live in echo chambers. Social media does that as well in terms of who we're being exposed to. So this whole notion of placing the responsibility of our terrible values on a future generation to fix, it's bullshit. To me, it's complete bullshit. It's like we need to change ourselves now in order for our future generations to learn and be better than us. So it's like, that's why when I see people online today, I'm not, in some ways I'm surprised, and in other ways I'm not, for example, abhi aap keh rahe the about like trolls online, and usually the demographic of these people, right? I'm like, a lot of these are just very young guys who are very hot-blooded and very triggered, and generally you would look at them and you'd be like, dude, you're just a young kid. How did it get so bad for you? Do you know what I mean? That you can't even see that it's that bad, And again, it's where you come from. It's about living in an echo chamber. And I don't know if you've seen, like, we're realizing now through social media, or research on social media, like in the documentary Social Dilemma, they talk about it as well, that we end up living in echo chambers on social media because of the way the algorithm only shows us content that we're most likely going to respond to, or we connect with. So for example, if I am let's presume that if I am a extremely regressive alt-right white supremacist, right? The moment
that will be a plot twist, though.
But
it'll make this podcast viral.
Yeah, that's it. That's the truth. Here I am. I'm saying it. I'm here for it. What are they? The Proud Boys telling them to stand by. Yeah. But like the minute I like, or I hit like on a picture on Instagram that has regressive alt-right values, Instagram is learning that I like that kind of content, right? So Instagram will continuously be showing me more and more regressive alt-right content, or conservative alt-right content. All right, I'm not going to call you regressive alt-righters, whatever. Conservative alt-right content. So I then live in this bubble of coming across content that only reinforces my thoughts and my values. And the same applies to any kind of person, wherever you are on the planet, that's just the way it works. So it's like, if you're continuously exposed to content that validates and reinforces your values, then getting yourself to change is a lot of work, and people usually don't have time for that work, or they don't care enough, because challenging your thoughts is always or allowing yourself to be challenged is always a risk, and we don't want to do that because it unsettles the foundation of who we are.
Yeah, they say people don't like new ideas. It scares them.
Absolutely. We still
Um,
live in the time where, like, if you're different, if you're different from what I know, it's your thing to be feared, you know.
so yeah, about your thing about the algorithm one. So I watched Social Dilemma, and I've been actually talking about this for a while, and basically, so I checked what Facebook thinks about me. I think ये 2-3 साल पहले की बात है. So according to Facebook, I'm a Republican, which is so interesting. And I know why they think that, because I write satire, right? I also went to New York जब ट्रम्प के elections नहीं हो रहे थे, तो मैंने और मेरा एक दोस्त है, he's also a journalist, so we bought like Make America MAGA caps and just went around, downtown and just looked at people's reaction. And it was the most hilarious thing ever. वो देख रही हूँ कह रहे हैं यार उसकी वोटर बेस लगती तो नहीं है, but like क्या चक्कर है, but man, that's the algorithm can get it, I guess, wrong as well. But I completely agree on silos. Like that's what it is. Like I remember, I'm 30, and I remember मेरे time के अंदर I would have the like जब मैं school वगैरह में था, like एक तो यार I think that's the like they will call, if I make that argument they're gonna call us the Zoomers or Boomers or whatever. But like I think at that time I was like एक तो making actual conversation, but B, I was actually talking to people who really like उस वक्त यार. Also, I feel like when I was in school, we didn't know a lot about what was going on in the world other than our school dynamic. Like हमारे लिए उस time पे school was everything. School was
Yeah.
like that's where it's at. That's was our life. We didn't know कि अच्छा दुनिया में ये क्या हो रहा है या उधर क्या हो रहा है या वो क्या हो रहा है. Then I remember at one point this page called Lucas Page came in Lahore, and कुछ आपको पता चलता है ये भी होता है and whatever. But what was different, was at the same time, if I was, you maybe just, for argument's sake, you actually were Republican, and, I don't know, man, your maybe family were Republicans and we were in school. We would probably still be friends at that time. We would still be talking. We probably wouldn't even be talking about politics that much. But now, it is a thing. It is important to know what your political beliefs are, who your friends are, or do you support the right person, etc., etc. So I do feel that kind of also takes a toll on the kids, because more than anything, I just think people, there are way too many rules now. Do you get it? It's just, and also nobody is ready to. Yeah, it's just every time you think you're doing something, you think you're being watched, and I think social media has a lot to play with that.
We're definitely more polarized today than ever. The divide is massive today, and there are pros and cons to social media, because like, the pros are that information is available to you, right? You don't live in the world anymore where just because, like we discussed this a lot, about like race, like a lot of people are still very ignorant about like which words you should not be using for specific races, and they're like, oh, that was a good excuse in the 80s. Do you know what I mean? कि हमें पता नहीं था, right? अब आप Google कर सकते हैं. If you have questions today about, say, anybody from the LGBTQI community, right? Like you can Google it. You there's no presumption anymore. You can't say कि मुझे पता नहीं था, yeah, I just presumed, yeah, I just assumed. That's lazy on your part, right? Because it's a quick Google to find out. But having said that, like the again, in terms of the con, it is like we feel this pressure to have a stance on everything now. Okay, we need to know which side we're on all the time, and there is no middle ground, especially like, we often talk about Gen Zers. They're a lot more aggressive on this front, about having a stance. There's no middle ground. And, like, again, I understand why Gen Zers are as angry as they are, because we've done a lot of damage, as a species to each other, right? A lot of damage has happened. But I think we're missing out on the nuance of learning from each other and allowing mistakes to happen. I do believe in accountability, but I think like accountability, sometimes I feel like online becomes too punitive, which is where cancel culture comes from. It's like we're very quick to cancel people today,
Yeah.
which removes the possibility of evolution. So I mean, again, like there are plus and minuses to social media. And also one thing I wanted to add is also, while we live in the age of information, we also live in the age of misinformation, right? Not everything you find online is accurate, or is credible, so it might be. And again, like it comes back to the algorithm as well. Like, if you need to make the extra effort to read more in order to be more informed about a topic today, right? If you come from a background that has certain values, online you'll probably find Facebook groups or sites that will validate those values as well. So I've always, I'm not contrary to what people think online. I'm actually a lot more chill. I'm a very like live and let live kind of person. I always trying to find a middle ground. And like in the way that you were describing it, when we were younger, it was okay to be friends with the Republican versus what it is today. Like I'm like that. Like I always say, like, it is your right to be whatever you want to be, right? I might not understand you and I might not
Yeah.
agree with you, but I will defend your right to believe in what you want to believe. And I can still talk to you and be civil and even be friends with you, even if I don't understand you. Like, but I know a lot of people don't share that view because, again, they're thinking more and more about the damage that certain ideologies have on the way our systems play out. So, for
Fair.
example, like if you come across somebody that is, say, very very I wouldn't, I guess, is who comes off as homophobic, right? And especially in Desi culture, I come across a lot of people that are homophobic, right? And they have a bunch of different reasons as to why they are, and when I get into conversations with them, they're just like, look, this is just our belief, or this is just what we think. We let them live. It's not like we're saying that they should have lives and freedoms, but we just don't want to see it, or we just don't want to deal with it, and I'm like, okay, fine, that's fair. You don't understand it, you don't, that's fine. But the question is like, when these people end up voting, how are they voting? Because that does affect the rest of how the world works. And this aggressive mindset comes with say, Gen Zers who are like, no, you have to vote this way because it affects everything else.
Yeah, so that's an interesting point. And I do agree. I think Gen Z are definitely much more aggressive. They want like world peace right now. They're like, let's bring it. Where is it? But what I think is sometimes what happens is, and this is something that I've noticed, is that in our criticism, I don't like the Republican Party, and when people criticize Trump and say that Trump kitna bura hai, and then they're supporting Obama, and I'm like, bruh. Like, we're talking about if the argument is, who's more racist towards Muslims, one person is, Obama, my man, is like killing them, throwing drones in a second. So again, not going to the politics of things, I just feel sometimes we do things also out of peer pressure, and then we mix them with our views, and then social media, and then it becomes like a mixed bag of things, supported by some celebrities, and you're like, okay, I'm on the right bandwagon. And then you don't look
because
anywhere else.
because again it comes down to being lazy about doing the research yourself. So
Yeah, true.
if you find somebody online that, for example, you think has the values that you agree with, you're like, okay, they've done the research, so I'm just going to support them. If they're saying it, it must be right,
Yeah.
and oftentimes that's not altogether true. It's like, not a lot of people just are lazy about doing the research. There's actually, I would argue that there's very, very few people who actually do take out the time to research what they actually believe in. And honestly, those people are not like cool to follow. Do you get it? Like, those people are usually somebody that's just like political ranter that you don't want to follow, you know? So
yeah. No, you're right, and that's what I'm saying. Like, पहले एक नीचे check होता था, like जैसे भी था. I think वो check भी बहुत ज़्यादा था. That's why that kind of fell, and then you had free media to an extent, and internet and everything. But like at least एक check होता था कि once when you were sitting on TV, अच्छा है जो बंदा आ रहा है, the one I'm watching on BBC or whatever, he or she knows something. They know what they're talking about. Now, literally, anyone can be on the internet. You don't know. It could be your next door neighbor, knows nothing. And they're like, oh, I want to get, I'll start making videos even if I have no information. And they could easily get a following. And people will believe it.
Yeah.
So
it's very easy.
It's very,
that's why I said it's information, and then there's misinformation.
There's misinformation.
If you appear with even like a hint of composure and credibility, and you speak authoritatively, people would be like, that's how Trump got into power. You know what I mean? Like, he just seemed like he knew what he was talking about and wanted to overthrow the system. So people were like, yeah, we're going to rally behind this guy. He didn't know what he was on about. You know what I mean?
Yeah, basically, this whole Trump and everything, if you notice it, it's been going on for a while. Like, Republican Party was always racist. It's like they didn't say it, but Republican Party always was like super white, loved wars, and a lot of, by the way, lot of people support, especially South Asian countries, loved Republican parties because they used to give a lot of funding and stuff like that. So a lot of this, this wave of polarization actually started a little before Trump. I would also argue it started somewhere around Modi's time, and then you saw that happening in Pakistan, you saw it happening in US, and now it is a trickle-down effect. Because if you notice, people now people are living in their silos. Like China ke andar, we all know what is happening in China, what they're doing. Nobody's going to say anything. Some people are going to say something, some people aren't, because it's just, it doesn't matter anymore, I've noticed. Like, it just doesn't, like, even public, like, there's literally a genocide going in Uyghur right now in China. We might be going a little off topic, but but the sensitivity of, like, that's not the main headline. That is just one of the news. Do you get it? It's not like,
I don't know if I think that we're compassion fatigued as well, because with the information age, like, again, with us being exposed to one headline after the next, we're reacting to everything all the time. So we're feeling like compassion fatigued in general. Like, like my brother-in-law, he's a psychiatrist, and he kind of also mentioned that the human brain, in terms of the way that we've evolved, right? Like, we haven't evolved so much to keep up with so much information all the time, right? And there's obviously, like, and that's why mental health is such a conversation today, is because we don't realize, by being bombarded with so many different kinds of news all the time, like, within seconds as you're scrolling online, you go from something absolutely horrifying that happened to something that made you laugh crazily, right? Like, that's mood tonal whiplash that's happening throughout the day. And because social media is addicting, we keep wanting that adrenaline hit, right? So we're living in this weird frenzy in our brains, and it's causing just different, like an imbalance in our cortisol is being hit, our dopamine is being hit, cortisol and then dopamine, cortisol and dopamine. It's like our brains have not evolved, or like we have not evolved to keep up, so that's where we human beings today are feeling burnout more and more, because of how much they're forced to react to, right? So it's like, it becomes a lot, and that's why we can't, it's like, I always say, like, I'm like, I just can't keep up anymore, because there's just too much. It's like,
too much.
There's so many things for me to care about. Like, even in my DM, I get people DMing me all the time, sending me videos of some injustice or some atrocity somewhere happening. कि आप इसके ऊपर बात करें, please use your platform. And I often say, like, look, it's not to say that I'm an asshole that doesn't care. Of course I fucking care.
Yeah.
But I have only so much bandwidth in my for my
Yeah.
sanity. You know what I
And
mean?
that's
Like
reasonable, man.
people will send me things in my DM without recognizing that I have anxiety as a human being, and without trigger warnings at all, right? And I'll watch something that will derail my day emotionally, and physically, mentally, so it's like it's not to say that I don't have compassion for things that are happening in the world, but I'm a human being and there's only so much of it I can take. That's why I'm saying, like, I'm at least in, like, I'm using my example as somebody that has a tiny bit of influence, so I get DMs where it's like, talk about this. But even for the all of us average human beings, the amount of information that we're forced to ingest in a singular day and have emotional reactions to, because your body, whatever you're seeing, your body is reacting in some way. It is secreting some level of cortisol or some level of dopamine, or
Yeah.
serotonin. It's happening. You can't stop it, right? Because if you've witnessed something, your body has to react. So it's like, I always say, it's like, there's so much shit that's happening, and it is equally important for us to disconnect and not feel social media guilt.
Oh yeah.
Like, if I don't talk about this issue that's happening in Yemen, then I'm not a terrible human being, or I'm not a part of the herd, and I'm not, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
You only have so much bandwidth, and you need to protect your mental health at the same time.
Oh no, definitely. Like we, like हमारे साथ भी, like हमारे साथ तो लोग नाराज होते रहते हैं. Like it's really interesting with us. Like sometimes when we don't report on something, they automatically, sometimes people assume कि यार, oh, they're taking the other side, and then we're like,
Yeah.
bro, we can only report so much news in a day. Like it's not even about anything else. There's only so much we can, we can report. So yeah, man, I totally get that. Um, this thing that मुझे भी चीज याद आई इसी चीज से about, like, I don't know if you remember, desensitized तो हम बहुत हो गए हैं, but I don't know if you remember, there was a time when there were a lot of bomb blasts going on in Pakistan. This is around
I had that
2010.
exact thought. I had that exact thought when you were talking, because मुझे याद है
Yeah.
it was 2000, it was 2009, and I lived in Islamabad. That's when the Marriott blast would happen,
Yes. और बस
right?
होते जा रहे थे.
And every other day there was a bomb blast, and I
Yeah.
remember I was a part of the theater community there, so like I remember BBC or somebody did a news thing, and they were asking, like, how do you feel about this? And I was like, yep, bomb blast happened, and we were on stage that night, because, like, it's fatigue, right? In terms of sensitivity, right? We have become so desensitized because we're just bombarded
Oh yeah, yeah.
continuously, pun intended, with things to care about, and it's like, it's unfortunate. It is absolutely unfortunate, but it's true. And I think that social media today obviously is not what it was in 2009. It is
Oh
just
no.
insane compared,
It
you
hadn't
know
even, I think it didn't even blow up in 2009.
Yeah. So, like, now, considering the amount of information that each human being is exposed to, it's, yeah, it's nuts. I do think that people are focusing very heavily more on individuals now than they are on society. Like, we're finding individuals to hate or cancel versus blaming the actual root of the problem in culture, you know.
It's a very good point.
I was just saying that, like, I've noticed that, like, now our energies are focused towards individuals versus the cultural problem that created the individual. Again, like I said, iska ye matlab nahi hai ki cancel culture, like, there is a merit to it when the person actually is a repeat offender that feels no remorse and should be canceled. But I'm always interested in, मैं हर वक्त यही कहती हूँ, I'm always interested in कि इसका root masla kya hai, and how can we fix that or change that. Because so there's this book that I have about film that was very revelatory to me, and in the book they have a page on just villains, right? Like, what I love, it's called The Power of Film by Howard Suber, and the way it works is it treats film terms like a dictionary. So every page is a new word, right? But each page talks about these terms in film in a very, like, just, I guess, like in a more like figurative, metaphorical way to make you understand storytelling. So one thing that I read that I thought was very revelatory to me was, when I read about villains, is the fact that the villain in the film doesn't know that he or she or they are the villain in the film, right? It's very rare that the villain is like, yes, I am evil and I
Yeah.
am the bad guy. You know what I mean? Most of the times, villains in all stories believe that they are the hero, or they believe they have a very strong motivation for being what they are or doing what they do, right? They
Except
don't
Mojo
know.
Jojo.
We know. Yeah, we know because we're watching the film. Ki, acha, this guy is the antagonist, and he's gonna fuck everything up.
Mm-hmm.
But that really changed my mind in terms of understanding people, right? People who are doing terrible things. A lot of the times, like there are reasons. I know it sounds, it's like I'm humanizing them, but in a way, I get it because they have become who they are because of wherever they're from. Iska ye matlab nahi hai that the villain shouldn't be cut off and
Yeah.
punished at a certain point. They absolutely need to, but again, from a human POV, I'm like, how do we stop the villain from becoming the villain? What was the moment where we needed to intervene in Hitler's life before he became Hitler? Do you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah,
how do
very
we
good point.
stop that?
And and exactly to that point, जैसे the rape case that happened in Lahore, everyone knows about it. अब वो उसके ऊपर अब आपने, and that's a very good example of, and ये पाकिस्तान का मसला है हमेशा से, we focus on the short term, जो वो नहीं होता, just make initial happiness, initial serotonin आ गया आपके अंदर, and oh great, and then you're like, okay, now what? जैसे अब the rape thing, they ordered genitalial castration, castration of male genitalia. Now, first of all, man, this is a government of 210 million people. You cannot first, like, people like मतलब मजाक है ना, आप एक prime minister of a country and you're like, what are you gonna put like his balls in acid like this? You can't stoop on their level. But the bigger problem is that's not gonna solve anything. That's gonna solve zilch, because the person who rapes doesn't give a shit about the punishment. That has never worked. The root cause is that you propagate it. The day it happened, your CCPO, the first person that CCPO blamed was not the person who raped, but the woman. And said, यार रात को क्यों निकली हुई थी? और उसको किसी ने
Yeah.
एड्रेस नहीं किया, CCPO नहीं निकला. Do you get it? And I feel कि exactly what you said, कि हमारा मसला ही हमेशा से रहा है, we don't think about the long term. And a lot of governments have also done this. Sometimes they don't do it. It's not because they don't want to help. They just don't do it because they know if they do it, it's going to go against them.
Yeah.
A lot of times, like the CCPO couldn't be fired because he was a political appointment. And I feel and it's not just PTI, man, all politicians that have come in Pakistan, all these political parties, because, देखो, एक time तक ना, yes, people bring change, people go, people bring change. But you need to realize in a crippled economy, when people already, there's so much going on, government has the responsibility to bring in some change. At least जब जैसे US में यार, जब Supreme Court या government कुछ भी कहती है या pass भी करती है, ठीक है, उस पे, there's restriction, हंगामा होता है, there's protest on it, but at the same time, order ऐसे से follow तो होना शुरू हो जाता है, right?
Yeah. I think that, like, obviously, it's not to say that, crime should not be punished. Crime should be punished,
Yeah,
right?
should be punished,
That's the way
definitely.
it works. And action needs to happen, right? Like when something terrible happens, you must take action. But I often feel like like in the like Roman times, जो arenas में mobs नहीं होते थे, ठीक है, who want to see the blood and gore, right?
Exactly.
Want to
That's
see
what
it.
we do. Yeah.
It's like it's that animalistic instinct that needs to see, reaction. So I even wrote a spoken word piece about this. It's called Conflicted, and it's about like literally just how we are still burning witches at the stake because we still want to see somebody, punished for something, we're still coming in. We're just doing it on social media. Now we're coming in like mobs to just hate and attack and demand. And I often say, like, look, I understand the power of social media in the sense that it does bring about change. The Me Too movement was born from social media, right? Like the fact that it took off to the degree, it is thanks to social media. So we can use social media to leverage legitimate causes. BLM lives off of social media, right? There are legitimate causes that are extremely impactful, and they work through social media. But then the other side of this whole conversation is when we find somebody in the social media arena that we want to see ripped to shreds, we still arrive with वही हमारी ज़हनियत है. ठीक है, हम उसी ज़हनियत के साथ आते हैं, and we want to see somebody ripped to shreds. So, I think like this is, when this whole Lahore case happened, like I thought it was extremely great that so many people took to social media to talk about it and to put pressure on the government, because that's where people get the agency from. Social media has given the average human being agency to voice their concern and their views and have and know that it has some importance, right? Especially when it comes in a wave, right? As a trend, as a movement. But yes, the whole notion of like what you were saying about finding quick fix solutions to appease a mob in the form of, castration, that again, that is not solving the original problem. Yahan pe I was interviewed about, I did a theater festival. Yahan pe one of my monologues, I hadn't written it, but one of the monologues had to do with women being catcalled on the streets and the thoughts that go through a woman's mind as she's being catcalled. So in the interview, the interviewer was asking me, like, how do you think, what does this make you think of? And and he just wanted my thoughts on it. And I just kind of said to him, I was like, when it comes to the treatment of women by men in terms of harassment, I do believe in, shaming them or like, or punishing them for it, right? Because sadly, the patriarchal structure of our world makes it so that they have more power than we do, so all we can do is shame them or punish them to get rid of it. But again, I always go back to, why does it exist? Now we live in a world today where men are now learning कि अगर वो harassment करेंगे, there will be repercussions, correct? तो वो आगे से, या वो अगर इस तरह के comments pass करेंगे तो obviously उनके repercussions होंगे. So men are internalizing कि if I say this, then I will be punished in some ways. So what are men doing now? They're just not saying it, but they're still thinking it. Unki ज़हनियत वही है. They just don't want to talk about it in, like you were saying, in terms of like, what are we allowed to say anymore? This is one thing where it's like men are like, acha, we're not going to say it out loud, but we are going to think it inside. And the same thing I kind of said, like, for example, when, during the civil rights movement in the US, where, there was this whole push, and rightfully so, to not use the N-word, right? White supremacists realized, okay, shit, I can't say it out loud, but they still think it, right? So their mental, and that's the mentality that they continue to pass on to their children, right? But how do we change the culture? How do we change the mentality from continuing on in that way? If like you said, when it comes to, chemical castration, okay, fine. Right? But like you said, is it really changing the mind of the man from why is the man having the thought to begin with that I'm going to do this to a woman, So that's the bigger struggle, and that's the bigger question that I have.
And I feel yehi jo sari movements, and again, I think the solution's in front of us, as you said, social media has done good, and I feel it has, like, especially, obviously, US ke andar, things can, and compared to Pakistan, the Pakistan problems are even bigger, right? But at the same time, social media has done a lot to bring this, to highlight these issues. Like, I do feel that ab harassment ka issue even in Pakistan is, whatever Khalil Rahman ko kuch nahi hua, you bhi nahi hua, uski baat to aa gayi na. People now don't see him in the same light. I'm sure Absolutely. He feels that. I'm sure he goes and he feels that, man, what these people think. But at this, at the same time, I feel अब वो step है कि यहाँ ना now you need some support. You need some support from a government level as well. Because, you know, at the same time, I know we're talking about this, but we only represent like 1 or 2%, unfortunately.
Yeah.
As much as it hurts, that's who we represent. And my bigger fear is actually, and my bigger fear is कि एक तो आपके trolls होते हैं ना, trolls मसला नहीं है. Those trolls are people who are still actually better than a lot. They are still ready to engage. They're still ready to engage in a way कि अच्छा यार मैं पसंद नहीं करता, but फिर मैं comment करूंगा, मैं कोई बुराई कर दूंगा. Maybe, you know, I can talk to them. I also feel a lot of these troll people who comment, in reality, आप इनसे मिलोगे ना, कुछ भी नहीं कर सकेंगे. शायद they might be too shy to even talk to you. That's the truth as well. But then,
yeah, I mean, that's a classic troll or a classic incel.
Yeah. Oh, incel, man, वो भी एक और ही level है. मुझे काफी डर है वैसे. पाकिस्तान can be a good breeding ground for incel.
I think it already is.
It is. But no, surprisingly, Toronto, by the way, is like यहाँ Canada में, that's where their main thing started or something.
They're everywhere.
Yeah.
I mean, the term started in this part of the globe, right? It's just in terms of like what they actually are.
Yeah, but they actually they became they did this one person ran over somebody in a van in Toronto last year or last year. He was part of incel. Like, oh, they got they're getting crazy. But what I was saying was कि जो अब आ जाती ना अब but जो मुझे ज़्यादा डर है ना, there's this other bunch of people who do not even, they are the worst. वो basically चाहते हैं किसी की सुना ना जाए, बस सब कुछ बैन हो जाए, हम जैसे लोग जो बात करें हम ना बात करें, सब कुछ खत्म.
Yeah.
That is what scares me कि यार वो पाकिस्तान में ना actually increase करेंगे and nobody is looking at it. वो जब चाहे मुल्क पूरा बंद हो जाता है. Nobody has also seen कि अभी पाकिस्तान में ना there have been 3 or 4 so some of the demands held by these extremists are being accepted by the government of Pakistan now this year, which includes blasphemy, some inclusion in the blasphemy law, and etc. So yeah, it is. I was
talking to a friend of mine in India, and like even because he was talking about what's going on in India right now.
Yeah.
And it's I mean, it's unreal, like in terms of how many rules are being placed now. And again, this is very Orwellian. It's very 1984. You know, thought police is out. You know.
Oh.
And yeah, it's quite frightening.
But I would also ask, you think is man intrinsically, are we bloodthirsty? Because if you're bloodthirsty and then can we ever change? We'll always have.
Well, so that's the argument in terms of like human evolution. Like, are we that much different from our animal, you know, like kingdom, right? Because we've evolved, yes, but again, it's how many years has it been? You know what I mean? Yeah. So a lot of people feel like there is something animalistic about us, but the difference between, I mean,
we eat animals. Definitely there's animalistic. We eat animals.
This is what makes us different from the animal kingdom. We are sentient. We are, right? That's what makes us different. Like, so for example, when men, you know, like the argument is that like men, you know, मर्द अपने आप को control नहीं कर सकता, बस वो है ही ऐसी, you know, like it can't happen. Again, the question comes down to sentience, you know, and honestly, by you saying that you are unable to control yourself, you are admitting weakness. You are admitting weakness, which means that you should not be running things. You know, if you are so weak that you cannot control yourself, then why are you in power? Why are you in power at all? So this is like a thing where it's like it's convenient, right? कि हम चीजें भी चलाएं, लेकिन हमसे गलतियां भी हों. You know, क्योंकि हम तो weak हैं, हमसे तो ये, you know, बर्दाश्त ही नहीं होता. You know, like honor killings. Yeah, like honor killings, for example, is a freaking joke to me. It's like, really? Like this thing offended your honor? What is your honor? Your honor is
अपने को मार दो. अच्छा, मुझे ये नहीं समझ आती, अगर आपकी ऑनर हुई आप अपने को मार दो. कोई है ना भाई जिसको हो रहा होगा यार मैं अपने को मार देता हूँ, मेरे से नहीं बर्दाश्त हो रहा, I want to kill myself.
मुझसे बर्दाश्त नहीं हो रहा, I can't control myself, मुझसे बर्दाश्त नहीं हो तो yes, like so like the root is to, you know, it's just disgusting. It is gross. I fucking like honor killings make me so angry.
It is yeah, it's it's just weird. It's
Honestly, I'm the kind of person, like, again, like I said, I'm not actually, a lot of people presume that I'm, on the forefront of the fight, just because I
but
make content that is,
what is even the forefront of the fight, like that's the thing. Nobody, I think everyone is just like shooting straight arrows into the air. Nobody really knows कि क्या
I
चीज
often,
चलेगी.
like, I often say that I create content that I feel like in the moment I am personally relating to, and then I just say it or speak it. And I think, and a lot of times, either my content is going to be deeply introspective or it's going to be something that is comedic, but with some commentary, right? Not a lot of stuff. I mean, it's not to say that there's some things that are just plain like, puns and trusses, wo bhi hote hain, but most of the time there's some kind of, and it's literally because I just think in comedy, like I think in humor. um
Oh, man.
and that's how I've always felt like things come out in a way that's, I don't aim to be palatable. Like people think it's like, oh, you're trying, and I don't aim to be palatable. I just create what I think makes sense. But at the same time in life, I don't consider myself like an aggressive person. If I see something, I say something. I'm that kind of a person. I try to do my research. I don't prescribe to any one set of values or thoughts or beliefs. Like I try to test myself in foreign waters to see how strongly my values hold, if they do at all, because I'm always trying to question my own conditioning, right? I don't want to be so just abhi keh rahe the about being stubborn about your values, okay, they don't even try to hear somebody else out. Like I'm not like that. I'm like, maybe I could be wrong. I'm also like empathetic to a fault like that. But when it comes to like all these things, Allah ki kasam, like I'm just one of those people. It might be a bit of an escapist thing to do or a coping mechanism, but I'm one of those people that I'm always drawn to Carl Sagan's the pale blue dot. I'm always very drawn to that because of the idea of it is extremely humbling for me as a human being to realize how minuscule my existence is, when it comes to the fact that we live on a planet in the middle of nowhere, and I just sometimes, like, I see people going through like huge problems or stupid problems, dramatic problems, and I'm just like, I literally, मैं jokingly भी कहती हूँ लोगों के मतलब ड्रामे चल रहे होंगे and मैं पूछूंगी, I'm like, hey guys, did you know that we live on this planet in the middle of nowhere? How weird is that?
No, but
you know
do you actually say that जब किसी का मसले चल रहे हैं and you're like, dude, you gotta listen.
You gotta listen, because it's a way to, like, for me it gives me perspective, and it's a way to make people go like, yeah, itni bhi koi badi baat nahi. Did you know that we're in the middle of nowhere?
No,
And nobody has definitive answers. I often joke कि जो भी आपके मतलब religious views हैं वो सही हैं, whatever, I don't really care what you believe, but I often joke, imagine, after we die, and we're supposed to get the grand reveal, like the curtain,
yeah.
see the person behind the curtain, and I often joke, imagine we open the curtains and the whole time, it was Atlas with the earth on his back. Or it was the Greek gods the whole time, and we were like, shit, iske bare mein, we were really like, yeah, we find out we're in a simulation, because here's the fact,
Nobody
jo bhi
knows.
aapki belief, jo bhi aapki beliefs hain, there's no definitive proof, right?
किसी ने
You
नहीं
can
देखा,
believe
yeah.
what you want, and that's totally your
Yeah.
right,
Yeah.
but nobody has gone and come back to confirm it.
That is true. I agree.
So I'm always like, calm the fuck down. Your religious views don't matter so much to me that you need to impose it on other people.
यार मैं तो कह देता हूँ कि अपने
I
जन्नत
was saying
सर्टिफिकेट
yes,
दिखाएं.
like I was. Yeah, I'm like, yeah, okay. Again, you're obviously like, you shouldn't be oppressed for your religious belief at all. Nobody should be oppressing you for it. But at the same time, you should be shoving it down somebody's throat because you don't know if it's 100% true. You're going off of faith,
Oh yeah.
And kudos to you for going off of faith. We all have our own version of faith.
Exactly. Nobody has seen the receipt, So we don't know. But I'm not gonna lie though. यार मेरी इस बात से थोड़ी सी फटती है कि अगर तो जब मैं अच्छा मैं दो चीजें फटती है. एक बुढ़ापे से, I feel when I get really old, एक उससे मुझे मेरी फटती है because I feel मैं useless हो जाता है बंदा. When you're old, like you kind of get useless and like a prop. in your family? Like, aapko, chalo yaar, freaking nalo ine shaadi bithate. Like, I don't want that. Like that is so. जितने मर्जी कहते हैं यार हमारे बुजुर्ग हैं, you know, oh बड़ी वो, but come on यार, that's not life. दूसरा, I feel कि, you know, if, you know, when I do die, you know, who knows कब हो, but you know, when I die, I do feel कि nothingness ना बस हो. Like ये ना हो कि like complete freaking, या तो मुझे पता ना, अगर मुझे पता नहीं है ठीक है, maybe it's the matrix, I didn't know, it's fine, you know. If I didn't know, I didn't know. But if I know and it's freaking pitch black, that's my fear. I'm like, no.
Like, I mean, I think human beings are, you know, we're kind of like, there's something called like the God complex, like in terms of when the brain developed it, you know, like we are programmed, or we've evolved to believe that there has to be meaning to this, right? There has to be meaning, you know, वरना ये किस तरह हो सकता है, ये किस तरह हो सकता है कि इसका कोई meaning ना हो, you know. And I look, I mean, I believe in God. My spiritual beliefs are heavily spiritual leaning versus organized religion, but I mean, again, like you've got to just leave it up to chance, really, because nobody fucking knows.
Oh yeah, nobody knows. No, everyone just, you know, honestly shooting their shot. यार शायद सही, शायद मैं पहुंच जाऊं, किसी को कुछ नहीं पता, you know.
And इसीलिए, and also, like, this is also another reason why you shouldn't treat other religions so poorly, because kya pata when you die it was their God the whole time.
You never freaking know. So वो history of God है उसकी, नहीं, एक तो history of God I think Ken Armstrong की है ना, एक रजा असलन ने भी लिखी थी God के ऊपर. Can't remember.
I haven't read it.
Anyways, he talks about this, you know, कि कैसे कितने सारे religions होते थे when, you know, when basically the earth started, you know, after Adam, there were so many religions that we don't even know about, by the way. They got perished. कि कहीं flood आ गया, कहीं तूफान आ गया, एक religion खत्म हो गया. So, you know, religions were just like, there were so many and बहुत सारे आ गए थे. तो ये तो रह गए हैं. We don't know if, you know, the right religion went and we didn't even know. There was like some kind of flood.
हाँ, पर लोग तो यही कहेंगे ना, लोग तो यही कहेंगे कि हाँ वो तो गलत religion थे, इसीलिए वो खत्म हो गए थे. जो religions रह गए हैं, that they're the ones. But that's what I'm saying. Everybody who has religious belief, like, they're very convinced that this is the right one.
तो शैतान भी कितने अरसे पे रह गया है. ये क्या बात है? How do you differentiate? कौन सा? What is like?
Which one is it? But like, that's why I keep saying, I'm like, be nice to all religions that you come across, because again, if you were oppressing, let's say you were oppressing Buddhists this whole time, right? And you were like, you know, inko main bas tabah kar dunga flan, right? Ye kafir hain, ye flan. I'm like, imagine you die and you find out it was their thing the whole time. You think like you're gonna be like, oh shit, I'm gonna get punished by their God.
Oh, सोचो खादिम रिजवी तो हो जाएगा. He'll be like, shit, yaar, like I was so in it, and
So again, that's why, again, I'm a very like live and let live person. Like, please calm down. You don't know for sure. The things we know for sure are the things that exist today based off of human beings, the things that we do. That's what we know for sure. And those are the things you can fix. Those are the things you can work on. Religion is difficult to work on because nobody has definitive proof of their existence or their credibility, I guess.
Yeah, so even in more like मैं और भी simpler term में बताता हूँ. मेरे साथ क्या हुआ कि like I, for the longest time, you know, I also thought, you know, like Shaitan is somebody who rules hell. And you know वो Tom and Jerry का, I don't know if you remember, वो उसके अंदर एक episode था जिसमें Tom is sent to hell and Tom hell में होते हैं और वो जो उसका वो चीज हो रही होती है, उसको मार रहा होता है Tom को devil, लेकिन बाद में Tom आ जाता है. Tom returns from hell. But I always had that concept कि वो जो बंदा है ना वो devil है, and basically I was thinking यार अगर बंदा शैतान से भी दोस्ती कर ले, you know, he technically rules the hell. इस तरह तो, you know, I can, you know, best of both worlds. अगर बंदा वहाँ भी जाए तो शैतान से थोड़ी बहुत उसकी power होगी, you know, कि dude, okay, I'll let you, you know, take it easy. Thank you so much. This was fun. I know we couldn't talk about content, paywall and stuff. जिसका मैंने initial decide किया था, but I had a lot of fun having this discussion,
Yeah, this is
and that's the
cool.
point of this podcast, anyways. So I'm glad.
Well, thank you so much for having me and for having this conversation we didn't expect to have, but it
Yeah,
happened, so it's okay.
that's what this podcast is about. Honestly, it has the most candid and unexpected discussions. ये मेरा हर किया हुआ है. जो भी guest आता है, we just कुछ और ही बात शुरू हो जाती है, and that's why it's always fun.
Well, I'm glad then. That's good.